Hello, everyone. Today on the show, I've got a seasoned artist, a painter with 40 years of experience, Sujata Dharav. Born in an artist family, she's been swimming in colorful waters ever since. Her knowledge, her understanding is like the ocean. But most intriguingly, her articulation of not only art but life in general feels like floating through the beautiful landscape underwater. How did I come up with a metaphor like this for my chat with Sujata, I wonder? Well, maybe it's Sujata's magic and her energy that took me into a charming world of words. So let's hear it from my conversation with Sujata. Welcome to the show, Sujata. I know you're fondly known as Suju and you love it when people call you Suju. So, with your permission, I'm going to address you that way. I know you belong to a family of art minds and art lovers. So, let's delve into your childhood. Tell us a story about how and when you were introduced to art.
At age 9, I think I painted a 10-foot wall in our house, and that's 100% my father's contribution towards my being fearless of space or scale or things like that. That I was offered that at a very young age.
You spoke about 9 and 10. That's when you painted your first wall. But was it something that you were, you saw when you were growing up, and that made you pick up that paintbrush?
I feel that because of the availability of material and me seeing that entire process all the time since my birth, literally, like I've played in paint since I was a very, very little toddler.
Okay.
It was so inevitable that I painted that there was no particular thought process to it when I was a child, that is. And I saw the magic appearing. My father painted the sea very beautifully. And he literally used the painter's patra, the 4-inch metal patra that the painters used to do the putty of the wall.
Right.
He used those as a palette knife because the scale was large, and he just brought the sea alive in like 15-20 minutes. So I think that magic was what was driving me, and I really enjoyed that whole process of being with paints, using my hands, dirting the paper. I mean, all that was very fascinating as a child.
So when was that one moment that most people have that like an epiphany that this is it, that this is going to be my career choice no matter what I do. So did you have a moment like that?
So it was not that a particular moment that made me feel that way. It was like a very gradual understanding of yourself. It's like I even today say that painting is a kind of revelation about myself to me. I get to know myself more and more deeper as I paint more and more. So it was like a very gradual process that, this is what I'm going to do in my life.
Okay, so at 9 and 10, you had made up your minds.
Yeah, I was really 100% sure.
Wow, that is some major clarity in life. Wow, that's amazing.
And I don't regret a moment.
I'm
sure. To date.
I'm sure. In your voice only, there's so much happiness when you're talking about it. I'm sure, like I just, I get that feeling.
Absolutely.
Now, can we talk a little about your art? What do you do exactly? I'm sure that there's a plethora of things that you do.
Basically, even when I was studying at the JJ School of Art, there was a natural instinct to teaching also. Like we used to have the teacher's day and things like that, where the older students would go to the younger class and teach, and I always did it because I really enjoyed that. Also came as a very natural instinct for me to teach or to make somebody realize the beauty of the visual or things like that. So that is one thing I did at the School of Art. The second I did was, like I said, because I painted walls when I was a little girl, that space of the wall always attracted me. That the wall was always my friend. Around the third year, where you actually start thinking about what are you as an artist, what is me, what is me, or what is my world rather. That's when I took up to during that time the more unconventional abstract way. Artist Prabhakar Kolde mentored me, and that direction made me feel so like, yeah, that is my place. I mean, that is where I feel complete, as a person, as an artist. And that's how I entered into the realm of that's what they called it during that time. They called it non-representational art.
Which is abstract art.
Yeah. So it is not non-representational. According to me, every line, every surface, how I apply my color to the canvas is representing something. Each one follows his own experience, instinct to look at that image and derive from it. So the receiver, the one who's consuming, can have multiple directions. So today, you look at it in a way in the morning, the evening, the painting can give you something else. Like travel within that space can be in different routes, and that's very, very exciting.
So today you say that's your forte. That is what you.
Yeah, I paint that way. The very interesting part is that I grew up in the city of Mumbai, where it was all about, the entire visual was very eclectic. People were from various cultures. It was a mix of all cultures. The other language, which I say that the texture, the color, the juxtaposing of different elements, the line, that's very much derived from nature. Because I'm very strongly connected also with nature, but I see it in a very different context along with the structured city. So it is a very interesting mix of structure and the ephemeral quality of nature. Apart from that, I specialized in murals from JJ itself, and from then, walls, roofs, floors have been my friends. So in various mediums, I have kind of worked with on huge walls like 60 feet, 40 feet walls, roofs, and worked in various mediums like painted them, used small ceramic tesseres to do mosaics. I do a lot of mosaics. I worked in wood, chiseled wood. I mean, all kind of mediums.
Something that we missed when you were talking about your childhood was the education that you got, because you mentioned JJ a couple of times. When you were 9 years old, you'd already decided this is what I'm going to do. So, in terms of education, can you give us a little background?
During that time, we could enter JJ School of Art after our 10th, which was a kind of blessing because painting was all that I wanted to do. So academically, I didn't have to go up to 12. Nowadays, they take you only after your 12th grade.
Okay.
So after 10th, I directly, so at 16, I was in JJ School of Art, where I did 6 years of art and a specialization in murals. The studying was very intense, but at 21, it was a kind of stepping into the real world as an artist.
So now stepping into the real world and about all the work that you've mentioned, that you work with walls and roofs, I want to get into the business aspect of it. How did that happen? Any challenges you faced in terms of getting business?
Basically, I think now what I would like to talk about is what was the survival aspect in my life as an artist. How did I survive as an artist? Which is in spite of having my father as an artist, and I had the background and I had the resources. So that was, I just could start painting as soon as I finished and I had a space to paint, which is like ultimate luxury for an artist.
Yes, yes.
I did have to really hunt, and I thank my stars really for that. But the struggle was there. Because like I said, that from Bombay, I came to Pune. My father had by that time started a teaching studio in Pune called Creative Club, where we mentor little children and adults to do work in clay and to paint. And when I got back, I came to Pune, and definitely it was a struggle because the way I worked was not being taken very easily by the city. They would ask me questions like, what is this shape and what does it mean? Why we use this color? And at that time, I could not verbalize. I have also been teaching little children for the past 40 years now. It's the best thing that could happen to me. I have the most genuine feeling for the process and for the enjoyment of painting that child has. And I think being with children, I started verbalizing my thoughts, making them simpler to communicate with them. And that made me talk about my art. So initial 5-10 years, I was dumbstruck. I said, what should I tell them? Why have I used a chrome yellow here next to a cobalt blue? I mean, there was no kind of verbal kind of justification for why I had done it. So that was a struggle for me. Also, getting work was not easy because murals are something that are commissions, right? I mean, somebody commissions me to paint a wall or to do a mosaic. So that came in slowly, but alongside, because my father's teaching studio was already available to me, and that actually gave me that stability of surviving an artist's life. The rest of the week I could paint and do what I wanted to do really. So in that sense, I was pretty well equipped right from the beginning. But having people to absorb my work, penetrate and feel it took a couple of years.
So then, since you mentioned survival, it was quite a strong word. It's something I didn't think of, using. So, can you give some sort of suggestion to like budding artists, what to expect, and how do you deal with that?
Right. So, again, I'm going back to my father's childhood where he tapped his school actually tapped the art in him, and I can't imagine in the 50s how it was to take a decision that I'm going to be a painter.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a situation in life where he sat on the footpath to earn and sell his art. So my father was an actually such a like he knew life so well that if I don't earn today, I can't feed my siblings. That was the situation. He said that you have to earn to get your own materials and to live as an artist, and you have to have the temperament to take the ups and the downs and live within lesser means. You have to have the temperament. It's not easy to be an artist. But I feel that the new generation is very smart. They have social media on their side, which probably we did not have. There is a lot of allied art things happening. So there are many parameters, and it's a huge array of things that an artist can actually do to get his bread, to get money for his materials. The thing is that my only tricky portion was for any creative person is that the moment you get into more of the commercial world, your pure art, as I say, art for its sake, or the pure genuine art should not reduce.
Definitely, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I get into probably murals, which are my commissions, which are also each different from the other.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken to say that it's never been like I produce the same thing again. It's completely site specific. And an interaction with different mediums, which I really enjoy. At the same time, I have to be very careful that doesn't deter my pure writing of my own poetry.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. This is the artist side of it.
Right.
How about the client side of it? Are they very liberal in terms of, paying up and, they need to respect the art. Anyone, I'm an artist myself,
Right.
and I also agree that you have to respect the art because I'm putting in effort and my ideas and all of that. But do you see that the same sort of emotion, the same sort of support coming from the clients also, or is there some sort of holding back or a little conservativeness when it comes to clients?
So in the initial years, like I said, the first 10, 15 years, it's literally 10, 15 I'm saying,
Okay.
Was challenging because they did not understand what effort it is to create. You have to actually, there has to be a dialogue between the client and the artist, and then the artist, if the artist is expressive enough and can reach out, if he takes the correct emotion with which the artist is creating, he is going to pay you on time. He is going to give you your money. But there are clients जैसे अरे 20 फुट का ड्राइंग किया इसका 5,000 रुपए क्यों ले रहे हो? He's going to question that. He thinks it's so easy. I said, okay, you guys do it then. You make a drawing which is 20 feet, and I'm asking for 5,000 rupees. Like this is way back and years ago. But that was the struggle that not all could deal with the entire process of creating. And you have to reach out. And I see a lot of artists who probably are they can't express as much, or reaching out verbally, because otherwise the client does not understand your language. He's not capable, or he's not aware, or he's not exposed. I should say he's not exposed. So you have to slowly kind of orient him to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and it's not easy to communicate. Let me tell you. The visual is really not easy to. I paint because I could not speak years ago that much. It is my teaching that made me speak. Therefore, I have so much clarity when I'm saying all this to even you, or I said yes to your interview. Is that yes, I can speak today. I don't do too many commissions. It's like 2-3 commissions in a year. I have always had, and that is what has sustained me. And I paint exactly what I want. And I don't sell a lot of my paintings because they are literally my poetry. I don't know whether other people even connect to it. Yeah, but that is not my worry at this moment because I can yet buy my material. So I've equipped myself with 2-3 other options which have kind of made life a better space, to survive as an artist. So here there's a very interesting story which I'd like to share. And I was in out of India, and I loved one gallery space. And I went to the manager and I said, "Do you rent this gallery, or there's sponsored shows, because then the gallery chooses the artists and sponsor shows." So he looked at me and he said, and this was about what 15 years ago, where yeah, I worked for 25 years, so it was at that time. So he said, "How successful or famous are you in your country?"
Okay.
I think it was a very strange question to ask, but I had to kind of come up with an answer. And I said that mostly I'm not known. I mean, I literally said I'm not known, but I'm 100% successful because I've lived an artist's life for 30 years. So the next 30, so everything has gone behind the struggle. And now till I die, I'm going to be an artist, so I'm 100% successful. So again there, what the world calls successful, how I live, whether that is success, whether I sell, is that success, is still so obscure for an artist. So I always say that the people who are the most successful, not necessarily that the artist that's super good. It's good for sure. It's good for sure, because otherwise they won't reach there. It's definitely. But then there's so many other factors that are coming in there.
And actually, that's what even budding artists should do, right? You can, like you said, you've made an entire umbrella. It's not only one thing that you're working towards. And
Right.
I think that's a great suggestion also. So where do you drive your inspiration and ideas from? And did you have a mentor? Like, you've spoken about your father's influence, but apart from that, did you have any one else that you probably went to for ideas? Then do you have a special room or a special place where you brainstorm? I want to know about the beginning of the process of your creation.
Right. So actually, like I told you, and I talked about artist Prabhakar Kolte, he was a very, very big influence during my growing years in JJ School of Art. And I think even today his words ring in my ear. Like if we were painting, he would come up and he would just give me, like we were in our final year where we really start thinking about our work. He would just come up and say, "Sujata, is this the Camlin blue or it is your blue?" Have you also tried to do something to the blue, or is it what the company is giving you? I mean, they were very small things, but I thought they were very large in the way that has molded me, and I give him a lot as a guru. And my father, of course, who taught me not just that of being an artist, but how to live your life and what to expect from it, and how to deal from the ups and downs in a much happier and positive way than brood over them. I mean, so that's why the optimism is 100% in me. I think I attribute to both these teachers of mine. And of course, I don't think there is any specific room or space where, I brainstorm or derive. I feel that even my chat with you today is going to inspire me in some way to do something different. So it is meeting new people, seeing new things, reading new things, looking at film, food. Everything is inspirational.
Okay.
Like I 100% eat with my eyes first. I am looking at my plate of food, looking at what color is looking good with what. It's coming naturally.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting.
So that aesthetic, or what I would say, my preferences derive from everywhere. Also nature, like I said, that though I don't paint nature the way it is, every time I'm looking at even a tree trunk, a bark, a dry leaf, it is definitely inspiring. And of course, man-made, like I said, structure, architecture is very inspirational. My husband is an architect and a landscape architect. I think both these things are coming together some way in a very abstract sense in my art.
I have so much to respond, but I'm short of words, I think. I wanted to know about your opinion about certifications and awards. So you are awarded many a times. So how important it is nowadays to have it in your bag?
The thing is that for me, they are really not super important. But yes, there is a validation in it. See, I'm constantly questioning whether what I'm doing, I'm constantly in doubt. I have self-doubt. I'm questioning whether somebody, is my art or is what I'm creating reaching out somewhere? So somewhere the certification and awards are an applause. It's like for a performer, koi to tali bajaye. So it's going to bring a smile to the artist's face. I'm not denying that at all. But again, how much importance does that award have? Not much. Well, again, there is a recognition through award. If I've got a national award, people can say, oh, this artist has been acclaimed nationally.
Exactly.
It is a validation. From that point of view, maybe it is an important thing, but people run after awards and recognition in that sense, in that direction, which probably I've never done and I would not recommend. The sale of your work also is a validation. So I was just kind of thinking, why would somebody buy art? I mean, if I think from the client's perspective, it is as simple as me buying wanting to hear the same song again and again. Because the song gives me a refreshed viewpoint. Today I'm looking at the basuri in it. Other times I'm looking at the tabla in it. So again, it's my travel, right, within that sound. So this also, looking at the work of art is giving me newer perspectives every day, which I think is very life enriching. I mean, each one has to understand that art is actually bringing so much to your life.
Wonderfully said. What a lovely metaphor. I'll never forget it. Lovely metaphor.
Right.
In your career, 40 years, you've also formed something that is called Art Mandai. So can you tell me a little more about what is this Art Mandai and what's the true idea behind this?
So actually, it is not my baby, I would say. It is a collective which 5 artists 10 years ago in 2016 in Pune got together. We thought that every person has the right to enjoy the creation of the artist. So if the people don't go to Gary, let us go to the people. After which we thought that let us go in for art that anybody can just buy. So make it more affordable. Telling the artists who are going to participate that it can't exceed a parameter, say 2,500 or as low as 3,000 rupees for an artwork which is original and which is one-off. It is not production. And next year is the 10th year. We are literally exhibiting the work of 30 to 35 artists at the Pune Mandai, which is the vegetable and fruit market. We sit next to the vegetable vendors and we sell the art. And another aspect we added to it was that 35% of that sale would go for a social cause. So this movement is actually growing very beautifully, and all 7 of us who are included in this entire committee of Art Mandai, we are very, very optimistic that it can really go a long way.
Now we are coming towards the end, which is the fun rapid fire round. Which
it's scary for me.
What's your favorite material to work with?
I think I love all of it. I mean, it's very difficult. It's like asking me what food I like. I really am a foodie. I love most of the things I eat. So, very difficult.
Okay, today what is your favorite material to work with? Let's go with that.
Right now I'm working with acrylic and wood.
Okay.
And combining those together, yeah.
What would you say your best artwork is and why?
It's so difficult because I think it's yet to come, my best. I'm dreaming much more of what else I can make. So it's difficult, but one of my latest works, which is for the Doubletree Hilton, I did a mosaic there, and I think the expanse of it was very interesting and very, very energizing for me.
Who's the one go-to person you discuss your artwork with?
I have been running the studio with my father's student, who's a potter sculptor, Rashmi Bhatkamkar. We work together, so we know each other really well. We know our art, and she and my family, my husband who is an architect, and both my daughters are also artists in there, and they're still studying. And I think I go to all these. This is my artist family who I share a lot of my ideas, stuff with.
So you have a family. You don't have one person.
Yeah.
One piece that you wish that you can rework.
Oh, there's so many.
But you have to pick one. But you have to pick one.
I think I'll go back to my college days. I wrote my dissertation when I was 20. I feel that it was so surface and not mature enough. Obviously, with years of experience, that thought is coming to my mind. But I would definitely redo it again.
And what was it?
It was, I had chosen 4 artists whose work I'd studied and I'd talked about it.
Okay. What's your favorite food or drink when you're working, when you're painting?
Chaha is the best thing for me.
Okay.
And many times I've dipped my brush into my chaha because I kept it on the right of my hand.
No.
Right. Now I definitely make it a point to put it on my left, but I've realized it's more psychological because the chai can remain for the whole day next to me, but I have to have it by my side. That is it.
One thing you like about client conversations?
Getting to know them because I'm creating for them. So when I do my commissions, I definitely want them to enjoy what I'm making. So I make that effort of mine to get to know them and to fit my aesthetic within that realm is a very, very interesting journey.
And one thing you hate about dealing with clients?
If I finished my work and I need to ask them for my payments, I hate it.
How would you unwind after a long day at work?
Often I listen to a lot of music. I'm a very avid listener, a bathroom singer, and I love to cook. So either I'm in the kitchen with my music, or and also films do a lot to me. So out of these, I'm definitely doing something to unwind with a cup of tea, of course.
So the tea is always there. That's right.
That's the constant.
Now we have a little deeper question. There's always an emotion that comes out in art. So what would you say do you use, like maybe a color or a shape or like an object or something to denote that emotion that comes out in your art?
I feel like when I look at nature also, there is the rhythm of nature is always, there is a perfection in it, right? But in the visual, I see a perfect imperfection. I want that perfect imperfection in my art. So I say that it has to be genuine and natural. That is the emotion. Let it be crude, let it be brash, let it be very gentle. So that has to come out in the most natural and imperfect way. That imperfection is what makes it really beautiful.
My mother always says the most beautiful people also have imperfect faces. They don't have the straight nails.
I look at that as a lot of beauty, Chandni. Everything. I mean, a garden which has a few dried leaves fallen is a more beautiful garden than a manicured one. I've never liked those.
Now the last one. If there was one metaphor that you could use to describe your art, what would that be?
It's a combination of the visual and the emotional world that I live in, where both kind of fuse with each other because they're not separate from me. Where the visual has the emotion and the emotional has a visual.
It's deep. But then what else would I expect from someone like you? There's always some food for thought. Now, this brings us to the end of our entire interview.
Chandani, it was a pleasure.
I'm really glad that you came out and supported this.
Thanks, Chandani.
Enjoy your day with a cup of tea.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.
What vibrant energy, such strong values, and some honest revelations about a painter's world. I hope you enjoyed listening to Suju as much as I enjoyed my chat with her. I'll be back soon with another interesting creative mind. Until then, keep spreading those positive vibes.